evening, everyone. I'm David Campbell, the minister of the Christian Church in Bushnell, Illinois. I am really happy to be with you this evening. I'm also grateful for the men that have assisted in putting this whole program together this evening. I want you to know, however, that this is not going to be a sermon per se. It's going to be simply an opportunity for me to share some events and the Bible stories that I think will help us through the situation in which we find ourselves. I think all of us, not only in Bushnell but throughout the whole country, have been overwhelmed by the events that have taken place in the last several weeks. They've disturbed our families, they've disturbed our businesses and our homes and almost every activity in which we're involved as individuals. And as we look at these, we begin to, I think, examine ourselves and really be aware of what's taking place within our lives and maybe making us kind of reevaluate some of the things and some of the ideas that are present for each of us. The study or the lesson that I want to basically bring to you this evening is, if I were to give it a title, it's simply this: where is all this love? And as we look at the events that have surrounded us, it's something that we really have to ask, not from a political sense or anything of this sort, and maybe not even from a religious sense, but where is all of this love that we have been talking about? I want to begin by telling you a little story or event that took place in my life quite a number of years ago. We happened to be missionaries in the country of Rhodesia at the time. It's now the country of Zimbabwe. But I was also taking some classes at the University of South Africa in Pretoria. And I decided on this one particular weekend to go to a movie. And it just so happened that the world premiere of a movie called Oliver was being presented in Pretoria. I was really excited about that because I loved the story of Oliver and all of the events that had taken place within his life as a young boy. Well, I decided that evening to go to the movie, and as I walked in to this beautiful theater, I noticed the balconies, and I noticed the beautiful seating and everything. And in the background were all of these great long draperies. They happen to be fire red. And then surrounding these, and almost making a picture out of them, were these beautiful white draperies. And as I sat there, I just began to dream a little bit. And then the lights went low, and the music started. And all of a sudden, as I listened to this music, and I saw on the screen an emblem that simply said, "God is love." And it was in a dark section of this movie. And as I watched this, the cameras drew back. And as they did, I saw some very ugly tables at which young boys in this orphanage were seated and eating. They were eating nothing but a grueling porridge, something that didn't look good at all. But they were singing, and they were simply saying, "Where is all this love? Does it come from the sky above?" And as I thought of this, I thought of the individuals that within that orphanage that were making the event for these little children. And I realized that most of these individuals were in a very wealthy situation. They weren't in homes like this orphanage where things were cold and dilapidated and dark. But they were in beautiful homes and eating anything that they wanted to eat. And then we look at these signs that are simply there. And you know, we find these signs in so many places, even in our day and age, that says, "God is love." And we even find this message, at least a portion of the marriage of this message on our coins and on our currency and all of this idea of God and love and all of the ideas that go behind this. But this sign, God is love, it's from Scripture. In fact, if we were to look at the book of 1 John chapter 4 and verse 9, this is the message that is there. God is love, and his love was disclosed to us in this, that he sent his only Son into the world to bring us life. And you know, this is kind of an interesting time of the year. We just finished with Mother's, or with Valentine's Day, and we've just finished with Christmas and all of these. And have you ever noticed that the holidays and the times that we have so many times are some of the ideas that are found in Scripture? And when we think of St. Valentine's Day, and when we think of St. Patrick's Day, and all of these days, it's this idea of love. What is it within our lives that makes us that way? To ask this whole idea, again, even to all of us, you know, where is all of this love? Where does it come from? God is asking us to love in a way that sometimes it isn't even normal, but something, as we look at ourselves now, we're in a process of reevaluating almost everything that we do. What's necessary? What isn't necessary? And I want us to consider for a moment the vast number of individuals, of, I guess we'd call them love believers in the world. Almost every religion, every church prides itself on saying we are a church of love. And that the commandments that we find in the Roman Catholic Church, the commandments are divinely inspired and taught through what they call the infallible church, and are commandments of love. The absolute love of God and of one another. And you think of what this means. And then we ask this question: where is all of this love? Does it fall from the sky above? And then there are 150 million Orthodox Christians who affirm the inviolability of Christ's words that said simply this: men shall know you are my disciples if you what? Love one another. And the question comes back again. You know, where is all of this love? Does it come? Does it fall from the sky above? And then this whole thing, you know, the question that is given by all of these disciples is, if you love one another, and saying, men will know you are my disciples if you love one another. And there are over 350 million Protestant Christians who really adhere to the authority of Paul's writings and when he makes these statements. For instance, in 1 Timothy 1:15, this statement is given here: the aim of our charge is love, which issues out of grace and out of a pure heart, a good conscience, and a sincere faith. Where is all of this love? Does it fall from the sky above? Or maybe we should really consider all of the love believers who are not Christians. They don't involve themselves in Christendom at all. In fact, 1/5 of the world's population is Muslim. We all know this. We've all heard about it and read about it. But Islam clearly expounds this idea. Listen, love to all mankind. And your question is, where is all of this love? 150 million Buddhist believers, that the right conduct and right livelihood are integral to their statement, noble path of knowledge. And these central ethical demands include purity, honesty, peacefulness, and guess what? Love. It's expressed in a right livelihood of somebody bringing yourselves up, bringing hurt and injury to no one, to no living thing. And as we look at this, it becomes something that we really must consider in the time that we are. Now, many of you who may be listening to this may be involved in churches that we dismissed our services this last Lord's Day. And many of us will not have services this coming Sunday. And so things have changed. But it's been an interesting thing as I've talked to so many individuals. They said, all of a sudden, my perception and my sense of need for the church and for love has changed. I miss it so much, they have said. And what this means to us, when love is not present, when love is no longer a part of our daily existence, what happens to us? Do we live in an area like that? You know, it's basic to the religions. In fact, if we were to look at the book of Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, we would find these words, "You shall not take vengeance, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself." And I want to repeat that question that I had in the beginning. Where is all of this love? Does it fall from the sky above? How are we conducting ourselves during this period of time? When one individual, maybe a friend, or maybe someone we don't know, they're infected with this virus, how are we going to treat them? What is our interaction with them? How are we going to involve ourselves in any way, whether it's in prayer or conversation or whatever it happens to be? But you know, the interesting thing that I found is so infectious is the mood of love for all that even a non-believing humanist, like this gentleman by the name of Bertrand Russell, maybe you've heard of him, maybe you've done some of the reading and so on, but he apologetically admitted that, listen to this, Christian love is the only hope for human survival. And as we go through all of this whole thing, the realization that the whole thing revolves and rotates and gravitates, involves itself in this matter of love. Even non-religious people really affirm how important love is. And so I ask the question again, where is all this love? Where is it that we are to have within ourselves, and how are we to project this and bring this into our own communities? And we could think of a lot of different stories about this. I certainly could, and you could as well, when you have watched an individual that says, I believe in love, and then the way that they treat their children, or the way they treat a business partner, or the way they interact with an individual with whom they are angry, or something of this sort. I want you to kind of imagine for a moment. Here is a mother and a small child. And they both have really recognized an impasse in their estranged relationship. They just aren't comfortable. And the mother is vehemently demanding a response from this child. And she says, explain yourself or I'll spank you. Or maybe another term would be, explain yourself or I'll beat you. And this child is knotted up in a defensive ball and shell, and no response is coming from this child. And the mother is enraged as to what's happening. And one last warning comes from her. And the tolerance threshold is reached all of a sudden. And 130 pounds of maternal anxiety pour over. And she grabs a mirror and smashes it on the face of the child. The thing is, the child is going to be scarred, yes, within its face, even as he becomes an adult. But what has happened in his mind and in his heart will last forever. Where is all this love? Where is this love in the way that we treat individuals? That really put a scar in the lives and in the hearts of so many individuals. And these scars are big compared to even a bleeding scar on the face of a child. Why did this mother hit the child? When an adult parent does that, is it a sign that he or she has kind of the death instinct in her and it lets it boil over? Are there times when the negative aids that happen, or the negative sides of our ambivalence, makes us literally hate those that are around us? And I think this happens. And I have seen this over the years many times where the animosity and the hate have grown to the point over the years that there is hate. They don't want anyone around them at all. Faces, as we know, I like this because I have grandchildren. I have great-grandchildren. I certainly have children. I have a lovely wife. And I want you to know something, faces are for kissing, not for striking at all. And the question goes again, where is all of this love that we're talking about? We live in a Christian nation. We identify as ourselves as that. And if we are doing that, where is this statement that we make over and over again, that we sing about on Sunday morning and in Bible study times, and we talk about love? Where is it? Is this an opportunity in the history of our country, in my own time, for us to reevaluate who we are, what we are doing, and how we are doing it, and why we happen to be doing it? We see a bundle of kids, maybe a group of young girls on the playground. And one little girl who is maybe not as slender and as beautiful as the rest of it, she's being shoved aside. And the others are going along without her. Where is the love? It's interesting to me. We can point to children and say that. But have we done the same thing as adults? We have simply excluded ourselves from some people that may not dress the same as we do, may not think the same as we do. All of these little things that take place. What's happening? How do we evaluate this within our lives? We begin to ask that question again. Where is all of this love? Now, my wife and I just moved here. And you know what? I want you all to know. I want the men that are here with me tonight. I want you to know this very thing. We moved down here with all of our personality traits. They're there. They're here with us. Where is the love? We've already noticed a great deal of that. But all of our traits are here, aren't they? Within each of us, your traits and my traits, as we look at them. And as we look at all of the times when we celebrate, and especially, as I mentioned earlier, we talk about St. Patrick's Day. And isn't this a time when we say, this is where we give romantic love? And then we think about Mother's Day, which will be coming up. But then I think about Easter, that will be coming up just in a few weeks. What do we think about these? When we think about Christmas, have you ever thought about this? One of the things that we always notice, we focus our attention on the star that was up here. Did that star bring love? No. But the interesting thing, he pointed to love, didn't he? This pointed to the one who would demonstrate love in Jesus Christ. And the interesting thing that we have here, so many times we expect love in every arena except our own lives. And through him, through what we find in Christ, we find so many things that are taking place. The countless individuals who have followed in his way as to what has happened within our world. We have seen where all of this love is because of the presence of Christ within our lives. We see it. I've watched, me having moved here from Florida, one of the things that I watched so many times were some of the immigrant individuals that were stooped low in the fields, picking fruits or vegetables or weeding or whatever they were doing. And I noticed that. And here were these men that were bound down, and they were doing it for one reason: to provide for a child, maybe for a son, in order that this son would not have to live this way. And because he loved him so much. We see it in churches. A number of years ago, I witnessed a church in Cleveland, Ohio, that gave their $400,000 building to a small immigrant group in order that they could have a place to worship. And you think about, isn't this love? Isn't this what we're talking about when we begin to think of all of these things? You know, we see it in so many arenas. We see it in a father. And this is one of the things I love, to go to the high school and the different sporting events within our community. Here we see it in a father who leaves a lucrative business conference to go and watch his son play basketball or football in the last football game or the last game. Why? Because of the love that is there. Where is all of this love that we're talking about? And I want you to say, you know, I see this same love in the life of our Sunday school teachers, in the life of the men and women that lead within a congregation and lead within our homes. They're sacrificing many things that they would like to do in order that they can teach. And the interesting thing is that probably the kids, they don't care. They may not be affected with this at all now, but they will be later. Those of us that have followed in the footsteps of a teacher or a minister, or even a mom and dad or a grandma and grandpa, where the love was there, haven't we then learned to love? Where is all of this love? Did it fall from the sky above? No, it didn't. It's within each of us. It's how we treat one another. It seems, as we look at this, how important it is. It always comes, now listen to this, it always comes through another human being. That's where the love comes from. And that's where we demonstrate this. This is how we demonstrate it within our lives right now in the crisis that we're facing. The things that maybe we could do. And I know everybody, it seems, is afraid of this virus. And I realize this sounds a little, well, maybe ridiculous or stupid, but what about the virus of sin? Are we concerned with this at all? It seems that we will tolerate so much of this, and then we're afraid of a bug, of a virus that comes, and so we lock ourselves away. Well, we can't help one another if we have locked ourselves away. And many times we have locked ourselves away in a church, in a building that we say is God's house. But you see, we are God's house. He is locked in me, and He's locked in you. And this is how we are going some way to be able to distribute this love that He's talking about. Too many relationships are founded on the flimsiness that is there. How do you know someone loves you? Have you ever thought about it? How do you know? Is it because they say, I love you? My wife and I, probably one of the few programs that we watch is on television are these programs when they're taking other houses and refurbishing those and making something new out of them. Have you noticed one of the phrases that comes out? Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Over and over again. Hey, I know you like this thing, but why all of this love? And I think of this in relationship to where we are. When we say we love someone, do we really mean that? Too many of the relationships are built on this flimsiness of just somebody saying, I love you. Love doesn't fall from the skies above. Always, always. It comes in our lives from the act of another human being. And I believe the crisis in which we find ourselves now is a way which we as Christians can demonstrate this, and it will be accepted as at no other time in the history of our country, in the history of the church. One of my favorite songs. If we were to use it as an invitation hymn, I guess it would be good, but I love it. Love divine, all love excelling. And think of the demonstration that goes about it. We sing it, but do we know it? Do we really know whether someone else loves it? Through another human being and the actions that we have on earth, all of a sudden we find love does not come down, but it's within us. Love expressed to us in a fellow human being, when we think of it, who gave us a positive living, a pattern of living and of loving, is the very thing. And as we face the things ahead, in the weeks ahead, that's really the demonstration that I want us to see as we come back together. I've been watching recently, been to a doctor's office a couple of times, and I sit there in the waiting area. And as I was watching, I was looking into the area of the emergency room, and people coming in and out. And you know what happened? As I was sitting there, within 3 or 4 feet of these people that were coming in, not one single person looked at me. In fact is, when I looked at them, they very quickly looked away. They avoided my look. And we can't avoid the looks. I think we have demonstrated this in so many ways. We've, in a sense, blinded ourselves to some of the needs that men and women have. And yet, this whole thing comes back at God is love. But we know it only through someone else. Also being a pipeline for the love of God. It's through the care of a mother, the support of a father, the fidelity of our husband or our wife, the encouragement of a friend. How important these things are. The support of your fellow Christians in this congregation or another. That's the demonstration that we give of love. And so I want to close with these words. God is love. But that love does not automatically fall down of the sky. If it reaches your life, if it reaches my life, more than likely it is going to have to come through that person that you're standing next to right now. That's where it's going to come from. I'm going to ask that we have just an instant of prayer. Our Father, we thank you for your love for us, that you have demonstrated this in so many ways. I pray that you will help us to be the pipeline through which is going to be shown to our world, to our community. I pray that you will bless our town of Bushnell, that we will find strength in you, that we will be that pipeline of love. We pray in the name of your Son, who loves us. Amen.